You're listening to Being Autistic. I'm your host, Shelly, and I am a 50-year-old woman sharing my experiences about what it's like to grow up knowing I was different but not knowing why, how I learned I was on the autism spectrum, and what it's like to be autistic. Hello, everyone. In this episode, I'm going to talk about something positive because I kind of realized that I've really been focusing a lot on negative things and venting, and I wanted to do an episode where I'm talking only about good stuff. So this episode is all about my 5 most favorite things about autism. So I compiled this list very carefully, and I'm happy with it. And I think you will agree on a lot of these. So these are in no order particularly. They're just the top 5 that I love, and I love them equally. So let's start with special interests. And I really wanted to talk especially about how autistic people have kind of like an intense feelings when it comes to their special interests. So it's like a deep dive. And to me, that almost feels like we are experiencing life in a deeper, more meaningful way when we are focusing on our interests. And yeah, I understand that some of these special interests are not like really what am I trying to say? Like not meaningful, but like profound. They're not really profound when it comes to the wide scope of life. A lot of people's special interests could be something as simple as some kind of a tool or some little object that they use, and like facts about some random thing that doesn't really help to know those things. But basically what I'm getting at here is the level of intensity that we can love something. And this goes even farther beyond special interest to me. To me, this also goes into sensory things that we seek. So when it comes to senses, we're either hyposensitive or hypersensitive. And when we are hyposensitive, that means that we crave the thing, whatever the thing is. So it's visual, it's auditory, it's, feeling and smelling and tasting. When we love something that's sensory, it seems to me that autistic people love it on a deeper level. And I love that. Like, that is what brings my life joy. That's really the number one thing that I live for in the world, is experiencing those intense feelings, those sensory feelings. They can be beyond just sensory, they can be just love. I feel like I love some things in the world way more than a neurotypical person. I feel like I get more benefit from enjoying that thing than other people do. And one example of that is music. And I've done a couple of episodes where I've talked either about music or about how I experience music in a different way than other people. Like, one example was in my last episode where I was ranting about my friends that I went to a concert with, where I was focused so much on the music that it actually bothered me when nobody else loved it as much as me. And I'm not saying that they needed to love the band as much as I do. That's probably impossible because I'm probably one of their biggest fans. But the thing is, nobody really wanted to continue the experience of the music afterwards. Like, nobody wanted to talk about it. And I'm just like, the whole entire day, I wanted to either enjoy it or talk about it. And that is a level of intensity that I don't see in neurotypical people. And so that's going to be, like I said, it's going to cover everything. Senses. So I'm going to talk a little bit more now about the senses. Like, I get really to the point where it's almost probably annoying to people, where I get excited about the things that I love in a sensory way. So let's start with visual. You know, I see the colors that I love, and I literally might jump up and down and clap my hands and get really excited like a child. And nobody else does that. Like, if I am in a store with my friends and, you know, we're going down the aisle and we're looking at stuff and I see something like in my favorite color, I will just go right to it and I'll go, oh my God, I love this color. And I'll like shake my hands and I'll grab it and I'll want to buy it. And honestly, I end up buying things 99% of the time because of what color it is. So my love of colors, I to me, like, I don't understand why other people don't get excited about it, but of course that's our differences. That's how my brain sees it. It just is drawn to those beautiful colors that I love, and I want to be surrounded by them. I want my vehicle, my house, my clothes, my walls, my furniture, my things like, you know, even towels that I buy. You know, I want them all to be in these beautiful colors that bring me joy every time I look at them. Just looking at all of these colors, it just brings me so much joy. And like music too, I feel like I enjoy it more than other people. Like, for me, when it comes to music, and I talked about this in my music episode, but I'm gonna mention it here because I love this about my autism, that when I'm listening to music, it's like the music fills my body and I get like the goosebumps. I get my eyes start watering because of how much I love it. And I've experienced this so much more recently with my recent favorite band. My favorite band is Muse, and their music, I can't even, like, I've never experienced this before. When I listen to their music, I literally cry over how good it is. And I'm not saying, like, objectively, logically, I'm not saying that they're literally the best music that's ever been recorded, but in my brain, it does something to my brain. I just feel so emotional and happy, and I cry and I get the goosebumps. And when it's done, when a particularly powerful song is done, I will just sit there and I'm like, oh, I just take a deep breath and my body goes limp and I'm just like, thank God that this exists, because I don't know what I would do in the world if I didn't have music. And when I see how other people experience music, it's almost like an afterthought to them. You know, they're like, it could be on in the background and they're paying no attention to it. They're talking over it, and you can't tell me that they're enjoying it in nearly the same way that I do. Maybe if they're at a concert, they will, but then they're not going to reach the level of intensity, and that's where special interests come in. I talked about special interest in that episode. You can listen to that too if you want to hear more about that, but basically, the special interest is a deep dive into the interest. It's basically where it's a whole new level. It's just an up leveling of your enjoyment of something to the level of where other people think you're weird for it. But I love that. I love that about autism. And, you know, people always say, would you want to get rid of your autism if you could? And I usually think that I would say yes, because of all the problems that I have with it, which are way more than the good stuff. But I also would hate to get rid of this intense love of everything that I experience. And that's my that probably is my number one favorite thing about autism, if I had to pick one, because, like, yeah, I'm realizing now that I get so much intense pleasure from the sensory stuff that I enjoy. All right, so let's move on to the second one that I got here, and that is how autistic people are very detail-oriented. We think of everything that there is to think of when it comes to something. So why do I love this aspect? Because when I'm with people and we are doing something that involves planning or an event or something that's kind of important, you know, like we're shopping for things that we need to get a bunch of stuff, I'm the one that is going to, like, pre-think, like, I'm going to think ahead of all the details, everything we're going to need, all of the nuances of that, like what would be the time that we would need to, and this is a big one, the timing. Like I am so good at planning like a bunch of events in the same chunk of time, where like you need to know what time to be at this place, which means you need to be done with the previous thing by this time, and that's going to take this much amount of time, so you need to do this before you do that, because then you will be prepared for that. And everything is like meticulous in my brain when it comes to that, and I do love that about being autistic. Oftentimes I will have thought of something that my friends didn't, and if I hadn't thought of it, we would have been screwed. Like, sometimes it makes me wonder how a neurotypical person can do certain things where they don't think. They really don't think ahead. And they get themselves into trouble because of it. Like, one example is my preparedness. That's a good word for this. Being prepared for anything. Like, I carry with me a bag everywhere I go. It's got food, water, lots of things like that I think I'm gonna need, like maybe sunglasses, gum, my winter, if it's winter, I have my mittens, my earmuffs in there. I have bags in case we go to certain stores that I need the bag for. I bring slippers, I bring an extra hoodie because my feet are always cold and I'm usually cold. Things like that, where I'm prepared. If somebody needs a fingernail clipper, I got it. If somebody needs a snack, if they're starving and there's no access to food, I've got snacks. I love that I am always prepared for things. It makes me more, confident that I'm not going to have an issue. If I leave the house, there ain't going to be any mistakes. There's not going to be any incidences where, oh my God, I need this thing and I can't get it. Now what? I'm screwed. I have everything. And yeah, so thinking in detail, thinking ahead, planning ahead, I love that I'm good at that. And a lot of people might, give you crap for that if you are that way, and I've been teased for it too. They're like, why do you bring all this stuff with you? But yet I'm the one that has the thing they need if they need it. And they always will like tease me for my meticulous planning, but I'm the one that is responsible, or not responsible, I'm the one that they can thank for getting there on time. And I know that time can be a weird thing for autistic people. Some people are time blind, where they don't realize what time it is, and they sometimes can be late for things, but I'm the opposite. I'm always early, and I'm always prepared. So that I think that most autistic people do lean towards being detail-oriented as far as planning ahead and making sure that everything's going to go smoothly, because if there's anything that we try to avoid, it's, hiccups here and there, like little issues that pop up that people didn't think of that we do think of. Like, what's going to happen between point A and point B? Many things can happen. Like one example is, if you have to be somewhere by a certain time, always make sure that you have enough gas in your car. There's not going to be I had to stop for gas, and then I was hungry, so I had to stop and eat, and that's why I'm a half an hour late. That sort of thing is probably not going to happen if you are autistic, especially if you're one of those people that's detail-oriented and you think of everything. You've got it all planned out beforehand so that there are no hiccups. And I love that about me, because I usually have to point them out to my friends. Like, you guys, you should probably do this now, because if you don't, it's going to mess up everything later. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. And then they do it and it's fine. So sometimes I feel like neurotypical people don't have that oversight when it comes to preparing and planning. So the third thing on my list of things that I love about autism is our honesty. And this is a really common thing that I notice with almost every autistic person. Yes, we can lie if we have to, if it's like a situation where maybe it's a small white lie, but generally, on the whole, most autistic people are very honest. We struggle with lying. We struggle with people that lie. And one of the reasons for that is because, well, there's many reasons, but like the first one that I'm thinking of is it's a lot of brain power to come up with elaborate stories that aren't true, and then you have to remember all the details of those stories if you are going to lie to people. And we are just really big on things like justice and, the truth. So that kind of ties in with being honest. And I recently was listening to a podcast episode where someone said that they got fired once because they called their attention to their boss something that was costing the company money. And they kind of like uncovered a truth, and they said, this is what's happening, and here's the solution. They presented them a really, really detailed plan to prevent this problem from happening, and they exposed the truth about something. And instead of the boss saying, yeah, you're right, this is, wow, this is something that's true, so we have to do this and it'll help. Nope, they didn't. They fired the person. Makes no sense to me. Why is the truth being pushed down just so that they can, I don't even know. I don't know what their reasoning is for that. I don't understand why neurotypical people don't want to know the truth about things, and why do they want to mislead people? And here's another part of the honesty thing. When you're in a relationship with someone, you have to be honest. And I think that autistic people are good in that sense when it comes to relationships, because we're not going to make up elaborate lies. And also, we're going to be able to tell when you're lying to us. I am such a good lie detector. I can't believe the amount of times that I've been lied to by ex-boyfriends and friends and ex-friends. Like, do they really think? I think it's because our brains just process the information so thoroughly. We're so good at that processing that if there's a flaw, we're going to find it. If there's something that doesn't feel right about their story, if it doesn't line up, we're going to know. And I don't know if that's intuition or if it's literally a logical part of our brain that's piecing together all of the parts of their story and realizing that, okay, there's a detail here that doesn't jive with this other thing that you said. I cannot believe how many times I have figured out lies that other people have told me, and it makes me mad, but relationships would go so much more smoothly if everybody was just honest like us. And that's one of my favorite things about being autistic. But it can also bite you in the butt, if you are honest to everybody and they're not honest back to you. Like, it's not fair. And there's the justice thing again. I hate when things are not fair. Like, if I'm going to go out of my way to be a good, honest person and never lie to someone, and then they lie to me, it just makes me not want to be with them anymore or talk to them anymore, because it's built on a lie. You cannot build a relationship you cannot have the foundation built on lies. And so that could be one of the big reasons why autistic people struggle with relationships, because we're too honest. We might figure out something that they're saying to us that's not true, and then they'll get mad because we found out the truth. So it's a double-edged sword, really. It's good to be honest, but it's not good to be honest and be lied to. And there's really nothing we can do about how other people are, so that can have bad consequences. But I still love that honesty is a virtue that we have, and I wish that more people had it. So the fourth thing on my list of things that I love about autism is our childlikeness. And so I did an episode on being childlike versus being childish. There's a difference. And somebody once gave me a compliment that they said that they loved my childlike innocence and I should never change that. And at the time, I did not know I was autistic, and I was like, this person sees this in me, and I've always felt this on the inside, that I was very childlike in my approach to life. Like I don't know how should I word this? Like, I see things, and this is actually my last favorite thing about autism, but I can't go too much into that, but there's another thing there that I want to say about life, but basically another way I could say this is also tying back to the first thing I said, was the intense feeling of our special interests. So an autistic person is going to appear childlike if they are giddy and excited and happy and jumping up and down and clapping their hands about something. And other people might look at someone and say, why are you acting like a 5-year-old? But I think this is a good trait to have. Life is too depressing and serious for us to succumb to that, and I think this might be a built-in antidepressant for autistic people, that we can access these levels of consciousness where we have a wonder of the world, like, like that's a good word for it, a wonder. It's like the flip side of anxiety, I guess, where, like, let's say you're hanging out with some friends and there's really nothing exciting happening, but let's say you're driving around with your friends and you see something that is just really cool, like a pretty tree or a pretty flower or some animals, and you just, you want to go look at it, you want to go up to it, and, like the thing with animals too, neurotypical people don't seem to have that connection to that part of the world, to other living things. And I think autistic people are really good at that. We're really good at that childlike wonder of, just walking out in nature and feeling connected to animals and trees. And I think it also can be partly due to the fact that animals and trees don't talk, and so we don't have to worry about the social aspect of, connecting. We can connect to things without talking to them. We can connect to an animal without having an, chit chat and small talk. We can just walk up to it and pet it, and it loves us, and it's great. Same with nature. You can walk through nature, you can feel a connection to the trees. There's like an energetic connection there. There is no such thing as introducing yourself and people asking what you do for a living, and people talking about the weather and stupid conversations that don't mean anything. We just cut right to the chase. And I see that as a childlike trait, because that's how children are, but adults are not like that. If you see a parent and a child out in public, the child is going to get excited about things that they see. The child is going to maybe want to talk to a stranger and act like they're best friends. But then the adult, the parent, is going to try to keep the child under control. Like, oh, don't get too excited, or calm down, or be quiet, or don't talk to that person, And I don't like that about neurotypical adults, that's how they act in general. I'm not saying that everybody's the same, but I'm just giving generalities here. And I really see this in autistic people, where we don't feel fear when it comes to expressing our childlike nature. And I think everybody should do that more. Like, express yourself. If you see something beautiful, express your love for that thing. Who cares if people think you're being a 5-year-old, you know, just enjoy it. And one example of that is how I love to hula hoop. I don't know too many other 50-year-old women that hula hoop, but I wish I did. You know, it seems like more of the people that do it that I know are young, and like there's classes on how to hula hoop, but it's always aimed at kids. And why can't adults do fun things like that? You know, the autistic brain, I believe, at least mine, does not think that people should stop doing things that they love just because they're a certain age. I think that people should enjoy the parts of life that they enjoy, because like I said, the world's a bleak place enough as it is without making it worse. You know, why not make it better? And so that's kind of like something that I want to convey to other autistic people. Maybe you're struggling with this. Maybe you feel like you don't fit in with other adults, and my message to you would be like, don't then. Just be more like a child. And yes, I know that can cause problems, especially when it comes to work. People are going to ostracize you and tease you and shun you. But, you know, honestly, I think most of us are used to that anyway. It's going to happen because they can tell that we're different. They think that we're immature. And again, I talked about that in my episode about being childlike. You know, people think that we're immature that way. And yes, there are some things that are immature, but on the whole, the things that I'm talking about are things that aren't hurting anybody. How is it hurting anybody if I want to spin a hula hoop and get excited about a pretty color? You know, I wish that everyone in the world was like this, because then I wouldn't feel so strange when I do it. So embrace your childlikeness. So the last one on my list kind of ties in with that, and that is that autistic people generally find things about life more meaningful, and we want to focus on the important things, the things that matter. And so this is something like, one example would be the example of small talk. Most autistic people hate small talk. And why is that? Because really, nobody cares how you are. When they say, how are you? You know, nobody really cares. If they do care, maybe they wouldn't even respond the right way. Like, they don't know how to respond. But basically, you know, what I'm getting at here is the conversation itself. Autistic people have always been like this with conversations. We want to talk about what's important to us. We want to talk about what makes sense. We want to talk about what is meaningful. We want to talk about what's going to make a difference. If something does not make sense to us, if something does not appear to be important, we're probably not going to want to talk about it. So basically, to me, the essence of this thing is that we're cutting the fluff. You know, we're cutting off all the extra unnecessary parts of the thing, and we're just going right for what matters. And that ties in with the last one about being childlike, where, you know, people need to lighten up more about the world. And I think if people were more loose and more childlike and more, you know, focused on what mattered and the truth of things and what was really important, then we wouldn't have so many problems in the world. So I realize that this one's kind of vague, and I'm trying to think of more examples. But yeah, I think it really comes down to conversation and also activities. This is a big one. I can't believe I didn't mention this right away. Activities that we do are, if we're doing something, it means we really, really, really want to do it. And if we don't really want to do it, it's going to drain us. And I think this is something that neurotypical people can learn from autistic people. If you are expending your energy on things that don't matter, aren't important, aren't meaningful, why? Why do it? And a lot of that comes down to social norms. A lot of things are expected of us, but they really shouldn't be expected of us, at least not everyone. If you want to go ahead and do those things, sure, but like, we need to preserve our energy, and I think it's a very efficient way to be when you focus your energy only on the things that matter to you. And that might be seen as selfish. A lot of people might look at someone that's autistic and say, all you want to do is this thing. You have to be more, you have to think of other people and what they want. They want to do this thing with you. But sure, you might have a lot of energy for all those things, but the autistic person does not. And I think it's just, yeah, it might come down to an energy thing. Like, maybe neurotypical people don't have a problem doing a lot of things that aren't important and aren't meaningful, but I guess I just, I love that about me, that I'm more particular. And that could be another way to put it too. More particular with the things that I do, with the things that I buy, with the, the words that I say. And this is a common thing too, that people might accuse autistic people of being too quiet. Well, there's a reason for that. Why would we expend the energy on talking if we don't really have anything to say, if it's not important to us, if it's not meaningful? But, talk about something that's important to us and something that we love, and we will talk. And I really hate how, neurotypical people are always like, why don't you talk more? Why you're too quiet. And we are not being quiet on purpose. It's just that we have more of a there might be a word that I'm trying to think of. We're just more selective with what we do. And I think it should be that way. I think sometimes maybe neurotypical people might feel like they're pressured to say too much, to do too much. But autistic people know that they need to conserve their energy, and so we're only going to do things that are important to us. And that, tying back to the childlike thing, I think it's really cool that autistic people can notice those things. And it also comes down to things we notice too. Like, we notice so many things, our brains process so much information that we have to filter out what's not important in order to focus on what is important. And I kind of wish that everybody's brains work that way. I hope I'm explaining this correctly, what I'm trying to say with this last point. It can pertain to so many situations, and there's probably a lot of examples of this. So that's probably why I'm struggling to come up with like specific examples. But yeah, I just think in general that it's amazing how autistic people can see what really is important. And we're maybe, okay, here's one example. I just thought of this. Like, have you ever met someone that talks nonstop? Like, they talk whether or not they're really saying anything. Like, their voice is just, they've got to be getting tired, like they just don't stop talking, and it's about 10,000 things in one sentence. Like, they're just going on and going on and going on. They just have to be talking, and they have to be talking. And I feel like that's draining. And it's got to be draining to them. They might not even realize it. Maybe they're pushing themselves to focus on all these things because maybe they feel like they have to. But I think that in general, autistic people are just more aware of the things that need to be said and the things that don't need to be said. And it just keeps it simple when, we can focus on just the good stuff. Well, when I say good stuff, I mean just the stuff that is important and, the truth. So many things that's a big subject there, and I'm kind of getting tongue-tied on it, and I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to end this episode now. I'm over half an hour, and I am curious if anybody out there can relate to loving any of these parts about themselves, if you do share these traits. And I'm sure I forgot some. I'm sure there's a lot more things about autism that are good. Those are just my top 5, so I hope you can relate to them. And if you would like to talk to other autistic people about this subject, be sure to follow my YouTube channel, which is also called Being Autistic, because that's where you can leave comments. And if I can get around to it, I might be able to check out most of the comments, at least. There's so many of them now. And yeah, so check that out if you really want to talk to other autistic people about the subjects that I talk about. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.